how do we get to a mental health that's stable? I mean, God, let's talk from the perspective of the non-clinically struggling individual. You haven't got major depressive disorder. You haven't got schizophrenia. You haven't got whatever. Name the mental health problem. Okay, because I'm not qualified to give you advice. I'm just some bloke in a weird spiritual robe in his bedroom. Do you know what I mean? But if we look at the person who just is kind of trundling through life, nothing's going tragically wrong, they just don't enjoy themselves. And they're riddled with this baseline anxiety about being a human, and they can't enjoy the texture of their own mind or their experience. What do you do? The way you feel is largely a consequence of what's reflected back at you from the world. So there's two perspectives. One is that you should feel good just in yourself, right? And there are ways to work on that, which we'll go into. But also, become a more competent, valuable human being, and the world responds to you like that. So let's tackle this first. There are parts of your brain that are designed to evaluate where you are in the social hierarchy. If you're shit at something, or you're a nervous little weasel that is offering no value in the social world, you're not productive in your communities, you don't make people's lives better at all in any way, you're not going to feel good. Because a lot of our joy in life comes from social flow and providing people with value. So if you get better at the way you interact with the world, at the things you do, as the person that you are in conversation, the way you affect people, you will feel better. You know, if you try and make somebody laugh or make them feel good or show genuine interest in them, if you're really good at a certain skill, or you're super academically smart, or you're great at football, or you're an artist or whatever, get good at this thing and show that to the world. Because if you're genuinely good, the world will feed you back on that. You know, from my example, I remember when I was less good at basketball, not saying I'm amazing because I'm not, but when I was less good, when I was just a little weasel kid that sat on the bench and couldn't do shit, I didn't really get much like deep joy from basketball. These days, I get deep joy from basketball because I'm at a stage now where people are starting to recognize what I can do, and I can see the development in myself as an athlete. So get good at life is an important point, right? Do the habits that improve your social skills and your skills out in the world, and then the world will feed back to you on that. And the internal stuff is deal with the noise in your own brain. Prioritize peace of mind. Get off social media. Or if you're on it, see it for what it is. Social media is a stage where people perform. It's not real life. So you have to view it that way. And take care of your health through the way you eat food, and the way you sleep, your sleeping habits, and are you exercising, and do you journal and reflect about your life? Do you meditate? Do you listen to things you're interested in? Do you read books? Like, that's the stuff that you can control. That's the texture of your mind that you can influence. Mm-hmm. And I know I've rambled a lot there, and you might have questions and bits you want to elaborate on, so I'll leave it there for now.
I like that you went the action route rather than the self-love route. I think that's important.
Because the self-love thing annoys me. Because you can't love yourself if you're a weasel. You can't. You can try, and I actually wrote a post about this that you may or may not have read, about delusional beliefs and low self-confidence. You can't pretend that you're better than you are, because if you do, you're just going to remain at that point of not being good, because you don't see the areas you can improve on to then improve, so then the world feeds back to you on how you've improved. I can go into that a little bit more, but carry on what you're saying.
God, this is like I think it's kind of a mass scam, self-love. It's... Well, I see a lot of it about. I see a lot of it about like, people people. A lot of people talk about your 20s, and one of the things that is pushed is self-love, because you're not supposed to figure it all out. It's pushed a lot, and that's quite concerning.
I think a better way of thinking about it is self-respect. You want to have self-respect, and the way you build self-respect is be someone that you would respect. It's simple, because like I say, your brain has feedback mechanisms based on how you're evaluated in the social world, and that's very broad, right? You can be good at weird things, but if you're good in the domain of that weird thing, you're going to get some good feedback from the world. So just like thinking to yourself that you're a great person, well, what evidence do you have for that? You know what I mean? You've probably like said some horrible things to people. You've like wanked on your own in your dark bedroom. Like, how do you know that you are someone deserving of love until you've provided the world and yourself and the people you love with like value, man?
I think it comes. I think there's an initial point to get out of. Well, this is when you're at the bottom. It's kind of like the sick man only thinks about one thing. The successful man thinks about 100. But in terms of maybe me when I was 16 only thinks about one thing, that I'm not good enough for where I want to be, and then me now thinks about 100 things because I've taken enough action that there's enough going on in my life and I'm constantly trying to improve. And we also have, so you said on a podcast the other week about there is Pearson saying clinically there's no difference between thinking about yourself and negative emotion. So to both of those things, probably how you improve that is action. I mean, if you're going to have negative emotion and thinking about yourself automatically, you might as well put that towards a thing. So getting good at, you said getting good at the world. I think I like the thing that you said about getting good at weird things. I think that's the best thing to do. So, and because also these things are, in case people think that doesn't separate, that doesn't, in case people are not, don't believe in that. I think the things that you do, so you, like especially your work, that's an extension of you. So, and this is perhaps why I've been watching a lot of Hormozy recently, and he says the work is more important than your relationships. I think the argument to that is, okay, well, that work is an extension of you, so then it comes back to making sure you are the most important thing rather than pleasing your partner. Yeah.
You need evidence. Well, I'm only talking from my own biased perspective, but to genuinely feel good about yourself, you need evidence. You can pretend that you're some confident guy. You know, I remember Joel from year 8, 9, 10 from school. He had friends. He had attention from people. He was funny. He was smart. Did I feel good inside? Well, I didn't have the sort of awareness or self-awareness that I do now. But I don't remember like sort of just smiling at walls and being very overjoyed with my existence, just driving around like I am these days. You know, I was just kind of sliding towards the next time that I can play PlayStation with the boys. You know, I didn't have some core values that I wanted to stick to. I wasn't doing things that felt meaningful on a deep level because I didn't have evidence that I was a sick bloke. And I had this class clown personality that meant I had some social attention and stuff, and I held on to that very tight. But there was no evidence there. Whereas these days, by no means have I done what I'm going to do in my life. I haven't even scratched the surface. But it feels like I'm laying the foundations. The fact that every day I get up in the morning and I write and I think on a deep level and I try and formulate my thoughts in a valuable, coherent way. And the fact that I train 5 or 6 days a week and I'm trying to physically develop as an athlete, they're the things that act as the evidence, is the effort, you know? Like I haven't just sat around twiddling my thumbs, watching Netflix, eating crisps. And so I can feel good about myself because I feel like I'm going somewhere good. And like, I'm not then saying that I'm a guru and I'm like the perfect guy, because by no means am I that whatsoever. But like people can listen to that and go, okay, well, what are my things that I want to get good at? And I'm like, well, just do them every day. You know, you have an interest. You have an interest, even if it's not anything academic and you're in school or you don't really like the job you're doing now. What's the thing that excites you in life? And how do you get good at that thing? Because one day you might be so good at it that someone might pay you for it. I mean, that was the whole purpose of Cal Newport's book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. get so good at something that the world has to pay you for your skills. And then once you're good at something you care about, you'll have evidence to respect who you are. Because if I go back to that year 8, year 9 Joel example, I didn't respect myself. Because I was like, I used to make fun of people just to like make everyone else laugh, consciously knowing that that person didn't like what I was saying. You know? How can I respect myself on a spiritual level if the way that I make people laugh is by taking the piss out of somebody else? And that was just a manifestation of my own deep insecurity. Whereas today, I have a bit more self-respect because I can't remember the last time I told a lie. I don't miss training sessions. I care about my ideas. And that's deeper than just trying to numb myself and pursue pleasure. That's a positive emotion that will maintain itself through the trials and tribulations and challenges of life.
Yeah. I think once you build as much evidence as possible, that becomes unconscious. And you carry that around with you then.
Jake, that's a bar. That is a bar. Say that again.
Once you build as much evidence about yourself as possible, all that evidence becomes unconscious. And
then that's what your sense of self is. That's why you feel good about yourself, and that's why your mental health is unconscious and you don't have to think about it. Because something inside you on a cellular level knows you're a G.
Yeah.